Coming up on a huge W show, all the fallout from a feisty final between Brisbane and Hawthorn. We analyse the All-Australian team with our special guest, Cats coach Dan Lowther, plus a preview of this weekend's blockbuster semi-finals. This is the W show, thanks to NAB. Great to have your company. We have a bumper show ahead of us. So let's introduce our panel, and sharing the couch with me today, my co-host, Sarah Ollie. How nice. This is a bit cosy.
I mean, we are close, but we're taking close to a whole new level, aren't we?
We sit next to each other in the office, and now we're sharing a couch in the same studio. I love it. Award-winning journalist Sarah Black is with us. You're off to Adelaide this week.
I am going back to Adelaide 2 weeks in a row. I can't wait to get up Norwood Oval. 34 degrees with a few showers, so humid too.
Heat rule in play. And making his W show debut is Geelong coach Dan Lowther. Dan, great to have you with us.
Thanks, Nat. Pleasure to be here.
Now, Geelong has been making all of the headlines this week, but nothing to do with footy. It's about this corpse flower. Have you seen it? Because the lines have been insane.
Indeed. No, I haven't seen it, to be fair. I couldn't get in. The lines out the door were astronomical. But, yeah, what an event for Geelong, eh?
It's crazy. It flowers once a decade, ladies.
Oh,
now, I know you jest. It smells like
a corpse.
A corpse.
Have you been, Dan?
No. From all reports, so rotting flesh, bad socks.
I mean, you don't really want to go and smell that, do you? Who's lining up for that? Anyway, we have plenty to cover off on today's show and nothing to do with flowers, so we'll put that to the side. It is all about footy, so this is what has been making news, and if you are a Brisbane fan, you are breathing a sigh of relief because your star in Bell Doors is free to play in next week's preliminary final after the Tribunal overturned her one-game ban for charging Sarah Black. You sat through most of the Tribunal. They took 2 hours to deliberate.
I sat through the whole tribunal.
Okay,
that was
there you go.
3.5 hours total in length, 2 hours of which was deliberating on whether Bell should be cleared or not. A lot of the contention was around whether she should have got out of the way in a different fashion. The AFL Council was arguing that she should not have left the ground. Bell said that if she didn't jump up, it would have been a head clash and even worse. So eventually the Tribunal did agree with Bell. She's free to play and such an integral weapon for the Lions.
Yeah, she really is. It's a unique situation. I haven't really seen anything like it. Dan, do you think that's the right decision, cleared?
Yeah, I think so. Looking at the vision again, like during the game, it looked pretty innocuous as well. But with the result of coming off the ground, a bit of whiplash, like you have to look at it more closely. I just don't see what she could have done to get out of the way in that regard. But leaving the ground obviously brings a bit of risk to it. But I'm sure Brisbane and their supporters will be thrilled that she's playing because she's such a barometer.
I tell you what though, guys, it was a fiery affair from a woe to go. And on the sirens, all that tension, it really did boil over. But it's not this melee that the league's investigating. In fact, it's 2 incidents that the integrity units are investigating throughout play. I mean, we love a bit of tension and spite. Perhaps this was a little bit too far.
Yeah, it was definitely an emotional game for sure. Hawthorn were really keen to sort of make a big statement, first finals appearance and everything. Obviously, there's history between the two sides too with a lot of player movement. So there has been a couple of incidents lodged with the AFL Integrity Unit, who is still looking into this matter as of Wednesday afternoon. So we'll wait and see what eventuates from that, and hopefully things can be a little bit calmer the next time these two sides play.
Now, Dan, put your coach's hat on, or just your hat. I guess you're a coach, so just a hat will do on that head of yours. Pretend you're Dan Webster and you've had this situation and you've got a do-or-die final coming up. How do you settle the group and make sure they're not rattled from these incidents?
I just think you go back to the way they've played the whole season. Like they've been playing pretty, free playing footy like their AFL men's team as well. So they're riding that momentum, and they deserve to be playing finals. So it's like push that aside, focus on this weekend. Another huge challenge this week, and their team is playing really good footy. So go back to what's been working well for them. The emotion part, I love the emotion part. Like it's what we want to see from a coach. The players have that care. So it's like, give us that and then play some good footy off the back of it.
Well, as you mentioned, we have 2 do-or-die semi-finals coming your way this weekend, and a couple of injury clouds. Now, both of these players weren't listed on the injury list per se, but Adelaide star Danielle Ponta hurt her ankle against your Cats in round 10. Got up to play, but Sarah, wasn't overly convincing to me. She looked proppy and sore at times. Is she going to be right?
I think Adelaide are going to give her every possible chance. The fact that she did play last week against North Melbourne would indicate that it'll just be a management thing from here on in. I've had every ankle injury under the sun. I know how difficult they can be, but they can also be strapped accordingly if that suits. But Danielle she's such an important player. I think, when you've got such a game changer like that, you're giving her every chance, aren't you?
Yeah, well, she's a weapon up front, we know that, and the skill she's got around the ball too. Like Matthew Clark plays her inside and forward as well, and she does it during the game too. So from a tactical perspective, it's a hard one to manage between her and a few others. So we all remember a kick from to goal last year from the centre of the ground. So she can do it all. So to be able to be playing is a big positive for her.
Hawthorn young gun Jazz Fleming is the other one who came off late in the game against Brisbane with what the club is saying calf cramp. It looked pretty severe to me. Let's hope it is just cramp, Sarah.
It is starting to warm up, Nat, and I have been noticing an increase in pickle juice on the boundary line. Jazz Garner was sculling it down in the third quarter of her game. That was a night game. So the Hawks were pretty clear on this, that they weren't putting her on the injury list, that her training may be managed throughout this week in order to make sure that her loading is appropriate, but they don't see this blocking her from facing Port Adelaide.
And just a quick note, Freo's Ash Brazel was a late withdrawal. She failed a fitness test just before the game. She's got that ankle issue. Is she going to come back in?
Yes, Lisa Webb very confident in her midweek press conference this week that, the extra week's rest will do the world a good for Ash.
Good
So
news.
guys, it is final season, but up next it is awards season where some of us do our best or maybe worst work, but the All-Australian squad of 42 was released on Tuesday night. And look at Hawthorn dominating with 6 players, 5 to North Melbourne, Brisbane and Adelaide. Your Cats stand with 2, Ash Maloney and Nina Morrison. I mean, what I love about this squad, Sarah, and you are selecting, so I won't get you to speak to who's in it, but 21 new faces vying for the team. It's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, I think one thing I can say was that I didn't even realise that there were 21 new faces in the squad. There's been a wonderful not turnover in talent, but passing of the torch, let's say, and all these girls selected on their merits within this season. It's one of the things you're having to weigh up a lot as you're talking about All-Australian is, are we looking at we need to not look at what has happened before, but what is happening right now. And, that's the future. That's Matilda Scholl, says Sinead Goody. It's wonderful to see.
So you're off the hook today, but Dan, you are on the hook. We've got you in here.
I am.
And we want you to tell us your All-Australian team for 2024.
Pressure.
Kick us off in the back line. How'd you go?
Here it is here. So I've kind of got in the pathway of picking a team that's going to play for me next week. So a lot of my philosophies are picked in this team. So look at the defence here. So Prowse and Richardson have had great years in defence. There's a good mix of tall, strong defenders and running defenders that can rebound off the back there. O'Driscoll with her speed and Lucas Rod's had a standout season. So really, really balanced defence. Again, the midfield here, Strom's had a standout year with her hit work and tap work. Garner, Riddell, Marinoff speak for themselves. But the outside runners, Conway can be used as a small forward, outside runner, pinch hitter inside, and McNamara's had a great season when Melbourne are up and running as well, so she deserves her spot on the outside. And you look forward, you can't have Smith and Maloney not in the team, so that's a given for me. And then Ponta, again, we've talked about her flexibility, Gilroy's toughness, and Lachlan Smarts as a forward. So it's a really well-balanced, tall, small forward line.
And on the bench, because we have 5 players there, Nina Morrison, your gal.
Well, a little bit biased for me. Nina does a lot for us. Nina can play inside, outside and forward. So again, that flexibility piece is important. Gould, lots been talked about her marking prowess inside forward 50. McCarthy inside this year's been super and the rest have been great all year. So they deserve their run, which is, hopefully not too contentious.
How did you go picking the team?
It's hard, isn't it?
I had to get some help to be granted, but the names are all very very familiar. So I'm happy with that team.
And you picked a team that can play right now because Eliza McNamara, I don't even think she's in the actual squad,
not.
is she?
But I like that you picked 2 wingers,
Yeah.
It's
genuine
my coach's
wingers.
bias hat on right there. So yeah.
No, it's good. And of course, the All-Australian team will be announced at the W Awards next week. But in the meantime, we have 2 massive blockbuster semi-finals to unpack. This is all how it went down in the first week of finals. Of course, North Melbourne and Brisbane get the week off as they prepare for yet another preliminary final. The season is over, unfortunately, for Richmond and Essendon. So as we take a look at our finals tree, the Roos to face the winner of Hawthorn and Port Adelaide, while the Lions will play either Adelaide or Fremantle. And just speaking of the seeding, so Brisbane are now the 2nd seed. So the rankings have changed slightly given Hawthorn lost. North is still the top seed. Of course, this is all relevant when it comes to hosting a grand final. So North Melbourne still in the box seat to host a grand final at Icon Park at this stage. And Sarah Ollie, a couple of cracking semi-finals, and we're going to kick things off with
Let's
Adelaide and
get
Freo.
into it. Adelaide Crows hosting the Fremantle Dockers, the first semi-final, and this is really high-stakes footy, isn't it? Because the winner goes through to a preliminary final. The loser, it is bye-bye to you, season over. So let's hear from both coaches. Matthew Clark, after a loss loss last week, and Lisa Webb coming off a win.
We just tried to be a little bit cute at times and probably just didn't get that depth of entry. So that's reasonably easy to remedy. But equally, there's a bit of pressure out there, and North are probably looking back and saying, no, they absorbed that pressure really well. So, would we have done it a little bit better? Yes, but ultimately it didn't, so we've got to move on.
I thought it was really important that we just made better decisions with ball in hand. I thought especially early on we were just a bit panicky and a bit chaotic at times, and we just didn't make the most of our opportunities, and Essendon clearly did. So just being a bit more composed, scanning when we could have a look, especially if we had a wing out, and then with our ball entries just making sure that we were more advantaged side to what we needed to do, and proud, we kind of stuck to task as well.
So the stage is set for a massive semi-final now. So the last time these two sides met was in round 2. It was really one-way traffic, wasn't it? The Dockers couldn't even get a goal on the scoreboard.
Yeah, my main takeaway from this game was just how suffocating Adelaide's pressure was throughout this game. Their defensive structure was absolutely on point, so it'll be something that Fremantle will have to watch going forward. But my main takeaway, looking into this game, is going to be the form of Caitlin Gould. She is such a powerful weapon for Adelaide, and if Fremantle are any hope to stop her, they're going to have to contend with her marking prowess. Now, it's not just Caitlin's marks inside 50 that are so dangerous. It's her ability to get up the ground and provide that outlet and almost, break glass in case of emergency mark when things are getting a little bit hairy. Lisa Webb's going to have to look at her defensive troops and work out what's going to work here, Dan, because they don't have an overly tall backline, the Dockers. Ash Brazel, if she comes back in, has played on Jessie Wardlaw in the past, who's much taller, but then Emma Driscoll, Laura Pugh, they're not the tallest backline going around.
No, they're not, but having the targets up front like Gould and the rest of them, they're great targets to kick the ball to, and they're marking really well in their front half. We played them 2 weeks ago, and there's still some vivid memories around Gould taking marks, and she had 6 shots on goal, so any chance to put some forward pressure on and some scoreboard pressure on from the start is going to be a big goal for them.
We can see from that vision she takes the marks inside 50, but sometimes she's also the release kick, isn't she, up the line. If you're coaching against Adelaide, is it a win for you if Caitlin Gould is taking the marks up as opposed to inside forward 50?
Yeah, it is. She's so flexible, but then you've got to worry about Randall maybe getting forward, or Ponta getting forward from midfield stoppage, and the midfield getting forward as well. They're such a really dynamic front half. So with her kicking as well to get the ball over the back of the defence, they're a threat from anywhere forward half. So good luck. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting watch.
Now we saw Nat in Dan's All-Australian team, that Mim Strom,
yes,
hard to look past her when it comes to the ruck spot in that team, and it's usually Mim just dominating, and we saw that against the Crows, but Jess Ellen's no slouch, is she?
No, 2 premier rucks of the competition, I'd say, going up against each other, and I'm very much looking forward to this battle. I mean, last time they met, it was such an intriguing and even contest. That was back in round 2, as Sarah just mentioned, but Mim Strom, I mean, she's so athletic, and just the way that she gets around the ground and moves, she's been even able to hit the scoreboard, get forward, so she's really going to be crucial to Fremantle's chances. As you take a look there, she broke the hit-outs record last week against Essendon in that elimination final with 55 hit-outs, and then you can see it's fairly even the last time these two went head-to-head. Dan, how do you nullify the impact that someone like Mim Strom has, not just when it comes to her ruck craft, but around the ground as well?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. You want to be trying, using her strengths to your advantage. So looking to shark her ruck contest is something we've had a lot of practice with our team this year. And then obviously her knowledge around the ground to play that tall down the line target or challenge forward too. It's going to be a tricky one to watch, but they've got more than one player that can go and support against Mim. So intriguing battle to watch for sure.
Dan, we'd like you to get out your whiteboard and highlight 3 points or 3 things you're going to be looking at throughout this match where you think the game's going to be won and lost.
Yeah, very topical here. So battle of the clearance game. So obviously Mim Strom, Allen as well. The addition of Newton into the Freo midfield's made a big difference, and we know about Ponta, Marinoff and Hatchard. So, territory is going to be really important. So watch that space. Significant defensive rebound game. So Adelaide set up really well behind the ball and they're quite controlled with their exit, whereas Fremantle set up quite well too, but it's about speed and surge. So if they can minimise that or maximise that if you're Fremantle, that's one to watch as well. And then there's that expectation around finals. So Adelaide have been floating around that grand final for a long time now. A very solid team. Can they get to that next stage? Whereas the new generation at Fremantle, nothing to lose, just getting gains every week. And again, does that expectation play on Adelaide's performance? So yeah, another really close watch.
And just when it comes to the Adelaide Crows, I mean, do you ever pull your hair out or maybe not so much, Dan, in your case, when you are watching them, because I'd refer to the game last week against North Melbourne. It really was a tale of two halves when you think of all the momentum, all the time spent in that forward 50 for Adelaide in the first half, and really not a lot of reward on the scoreboard. And you see North on the opposite side in the second half, they take complete control on the scoreboard. Is it frustrating if you're Matthew Clark that when you do have momentum, it doesn't always, particularly this season, convert to score?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Like, there's so many momentum shifts in AFLW. So, scoreboard pressure is a major factor to get that kind of anxiety and mental game right from the start. So, Adelaide probably had 3 or 4 shots on goal against us that they missed early in the game, which allowed us to keep playing our flow. But then their second half was more dynamic, and the same for the game we're watching now. Scoreboard pressure is has a major impact on the game, particularly in the first half. So you go in at half time thinking, yep, things are working, momentum's going the right way, and the system's in place. So yeah, it's a big thing.
The second semi-final is on Saturday night. That's at Icon Park between Hawthorn and Port Adelaide. As we know, in the men's season, these two sides went head-to-head. It was Port Adelaide who got the chocolates that night. Can the W side follow suit? Well, before we unpack it, let's hear from the coaches.
The reality is you need to finish your work, and so good teams finish their work, and that's what we need to learn to do. I think we do walk away knowing that we'll get a lot of confidence because you're able to run the defending premiers who were stretched because they were feeling the pressure as well. You could see that in the game and like the behaviours and some of the reactions off the back of it. So we knew it was a high stressful game and we tested them as much as we could. So I think in that sense we can go with anyone, and it's a good sign for our group.
Our Team D was 17th in the comp at the end of last year, and now we're obviously significantly better than that. But really, I've been talking pretty bullishly for the last almost 3 years about building offence, and to be able to put out an offensive game today and be strong in the contest and defend really well, that's the style of footy that I think we should be seeing in AFLW. And I'm, again, really, really proud that both teams were able to put on such a good game today.
No doubt that Port Adelaide is full of confidence and self-belief as Dan gets himself ready to go to the deep dive with Gemma. Sarah, they've won 7 games in a row now. Their last loss came against Richmond. I mean, this is a big boost of confidence for them, riding that wave of momentum too.
It certainly is, and a lot of it's around learning how to win as well. So Port Adelaide haven't necessarily overly changed their game style in the last couple of years. They're just executing it a little bit better this time around. So Lauren Arnell's been teaching this side from the start about what's the best way to win, and in her mind it's that attacking footy that she was referencing just earlier. So that sort of momentum and enjoyment feeds in on itself, and while you look at Port Adelaide and who they've beaten, it hasn't been necessarily the most premier teams in the competition. These girls are going to take an enormous amount of confidence from those games, not just for this final series, but for years going forward.
Well, when it comes to Hawthorn and Port Adelaide, they have fairly different game styles, and that's where we find our deep dive with Gemma Bastiani.
This weekend's semi-final between Hawthorn and Port Adelaide is going to be a fascinating one. They've got significant clashes in the style of their play, don't they?
They do indeed.
We've got some numbers to show just how different they are in terms of controlling the ball, Hawthorn, and the chaos ball that Port Adelaide likes to bring to the game.
Yeah, you can see the control element here with Hawthorn. So uncontested marks, they're ranked second and switch off the back of being able to control the ball. You look at Port, they're a bit more contested, long down the line with their numbers here as well, kick forward to challenge opposition defence. So the contrasting elements of how they play the game. It'll be interesting to see how they go.
Yeah, on the wide deck of Icon Park as well, the ability to use that switch could really work for them. We've got a graphic here to explain just how this looks. So Port Adelaide, they like to have a bit of a stoppage or a contest, long kick, stoppage or contest, long kick. Whereas Hawthorn want to use, uncontested marks, shorter kicks, pick out targets.
Yeah, you can see here with Port, like defensive formations can set up to defend these long kind of territory surge types of attack, whereas it's harder with team formation, 1v1 play against player to defend, control, change of possession and change of direction, which is really hard as a defensive group to defend. And you can see the end result too, dangerous space to kick the ball to it for the Hawthorn areas here. You get that when changing direction, but maybe you're locked in if you're going more straight.
Yeah, so we've got some examples of footage to represent what this is. We'll start off with Hawthorn. So they want to get the handball out of the contest. They don't want to just kick straight out of the contest. But then once it's out into a little bit of space, that's when they start to move the ball.
Yeah, and this is where the surge in behind that comes in too. So a strong contested mark here. And the other control element, so you can see off ball here too with Ashmore running running off ball. It splits the defence, it widens the attacking momentum as well. We get the ball from inside out again, but the width of the opposition there to defend all parts of the ground's harder, and you get a shot on goal at the end off the back of it.
Yeah, and it's not always going to look perfect. Mattia Bree dropped the footy there, but because you're splitting the defence and you've got that representation, you're able to actually still be really damaging. And this is another example. It's not perfect the way they use the footy, but they know that they've got that representation there because they're all running in waves.
Yeah, a big difference here too. You can see Hawthorn, there's a control and tempo with ball in possession. So yeah, drop mark here. As it plays out, Bates wins possession, but doesn't fall into the trap of just getting the ball forwards. There's some composure here, find a short player who's free, and then opportunities come off the back of that. So forwards now are lengthening ahead, opportunities to use a standard to play on, and then you've got the formation stretching the opposition defence and put the ball in a dangerous spot, which is really good attack.
Yeah, and now in contrast, we've got what Port Adelaide want to do, which again is that surge mentality, long kicks, contest. So this is how it looks really different for them. Intercept. Again, it's not the prettiest intercept, but it's this and then long kick. Let's get it straight into territory. Let's gain some ground.
Yeah, I don't mind that kick to that to a 2v1. So you expect a contest from your forwards, but it's here now. So Houghton's running forward, challenging again. You can imagine the Port forwards challenging forwards. And this is where you can see off screen the Port players are getting in, challenging to put some defensive pressure on.
And this, again, their ability to trap it forward once they do have that territory is really important to intercept. But again, it's a turn and kick. It's not necessarily a take a beat, find a target, because they're really happy to live in the contest. They really trust that they have representation.
Yeah, and where the ball goes is important too. So that kick to the top of the square puts pressure on the defence, and you get the result every now and then.
It'll be really interesting this weekend to see which one wins out in a high-pressure final. Two former Lions at the helm of each side as well. We'll see what happens.
Thanks, Gemma. We will indeed, Sarah. Black control or chaos? Which one wins?
Interesting, because the chaos is fun for finals. It absorbs all that energy, but then the control is what you really need to have that last clean kick inside 50. So I'm leaning towards the Hawks.
We'll see what happens. Now, the Hawks will need to be wary of Gemma Houghton, who is our NAB star power for this week. She is causing a lot of havoc, Sarah Ollie.
Isn't she? And I love the blend of experience and youth when it comes to this Port Adelaide side. And this is a veteran who you can't underestimate because she is so wily in front of goal, as we're seeing there. And she's really one of the players that are leading the younger brigade at Port Adelaide with so much authority. She must be a coach's nightmare. And Dan, if you get back onto the couch here, how do you contend with a player like Gemma Houghton?
It's chaotic. This is the control and chaos game. Like, you just don't know what you're going to get from her. She's so damaging and powerful with a drive out and a nous for where the goal is. You just hope she gets the ball outside 30 or 40 so that the next possession is going to be as damaging.
All right, Dan, your coach's whiteboard. What are we looking for? 3 things this weekend.
Well, it's exciting, the future of the game here. So the younger generation on show. So look at the expansion and compensation picks over the last couple of seasons really coming to the fore. So expect a really fast running, gutting game from both teams, leading into high scoring, and then both teams have showed they've got the capacity to score. And then denying Port's territory game and denying Hawks' outside game. So that control and chaos part needs to be really monitored. So it's going to be a really hot, fast game, but the talent on show is going to be really exciting to watch.
Should we get a tip from everyone?
I think so, yeah.
All right, so your tip for the 2 semis.
Oh, look, I think Hawthorn are in really good form from the start to now, and last week was maybe just a bit of a blip on the radar. So for me, they're one to watch, and I think Adelaide will get the job done.
Adelaide and Hawthorn, but with the proviso that I wouldn't be surprised if Port Adelaide win, which is what I said last week.
A little bit boring. I'm going with the same 2 teams, but I think there is a gulf between the top 4 and the bottom 4 of the 8. I mean, you don't have a Hawthorn scarf on right now, but you're going to tip them, aren't you?
I'm super professional. I actually have a feeling Port Adelaide might win.
Oh, no. She likes to do this, everyone. She's being very disingenuous.
All right, let's move on.
Now, Dan, we've got you here, so we thought we'd do some analysis on your Geelong side. And I guess what went wrong this year, because last year making a preliminary final, actually so close to making the grand final, and this year just things didn't go your way. You miss out on finals altogether. Can you put your finger on it? What went wrong?
Oh, look, there's probably a few things that went wrong against us throughout the season. We expected to do well, and I thought we started our off-season with a little bit off, to be fair, and lost a bit of momentum, had some injuries throughout that early part of pre-season, which hurt us going into our early rounds. But, we played okay against Melbourne and the Kangaroos, had the draw against them, which was a real positive. But then just lost our way through that condensed period there too. Lost a few players that couldn't get out in the track and train. But then we found our mojo again, which is important. And that consistency and continuity with players who play in positions, with Georgie not being around or Amy McDonald not playing together, it meant that other players had to step up and play maybe a role they weren't too familiar or confident with. So on the flip side of that, the confidence going into next pre-season, knowing that we've got some growth from individuals in certain areas, is certainly buoyant for us to look forward to. So one of those ones where you'd like to have it again and take the learnings from this year into next year. But you know, the girls are really positive. They know that next year is going to be just as strong. So yeah, look out.
You mentioned the condensed footy. Just how tough were the challenges that you faced, and how hard was it to get any consistency or fluidity within the team? Because you mentioned towards the end of the year you had it, but it must have been tricky there in the middle part of the year, especially when injuries hit.
Yeah, it was a real gracious for the extra games, but you know, as a program, we felt that we didn't quite have that continuity in training. So we're playing from one day to the next. You know, 3 or 4 day break, 5 day break, and it all comes down to recovery and who's available and the list size and management. So you don't train as much, you don't get on the park, and you don't get your match practice in, and that's just one element. So you know, go home, rest up, recover. We'll see you in a couple of days' time. So you lose that kind of momentum on how we're progressing as a team. You lose a bit of system as well. Other teams, you know, manage it quite well. We just didn't quite manage it. And then there's the pressure on staff and your whole program in general to make sure that they're giving up things to keep things ticking along at a really high pace. So we've learned a lot from it as a program and an AFL industry as well.
Now, the footy calendar doesn't stop just because you've missed finals, unfortunately. Straight into list management, trade period and the like. So I'm going to throw a couple of names at you. Firstly, Anna Rose Kennedy, revelation this year, but unfortunately she's heading back to Ireland. Yeah, look, it's devastating for us. Like, she's had such a great year this year. Last year she couldn't get out the park and actually play, but she's shown clearly just how well she can play this game. And then we respect the fact she's going back home for her own personal reasons to continue her life back in Ireland. And you know, if I have to go back and knock on the door, I'm happy to do that. So, yeah.
Free trip.
You've had such success with those Irish players. I wouldn't be surprised if we see her a little bit down the track. Now, Darcy Maloney is one who's she is looking elsewhere. Where do you see Darcy in your picture? Because obviously you've got such a high quality midfield, and she's not necessarily getting the minutes she may be after. Yeah, it's one of those things where you want to keep building depth in your squad, midfield for us in particular. You know, and Darcy's he's craving to be the best player she possibly can be, and you know, she's had opportunities this year to play in the midfield, which is great for her growth and development. She also go forward and play and kick goals as well. She's a highly talented kid. I'm hoping she wants to stay at Geelong because we've got a lot of time for Darcy, and you know, and this is the thing, giving her a chance to keep playing in those positions is going to be our #1 priority. And a ruck, is that top of your wish list? Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, if only, you know, and that's the thing, you know, Erin left during the early parts of our pre-season, and that's okay. We have to kind of forge on and make our own path off the back of it, but it's something that's, I'm sure it's not a hidden secret out there that we need someone tall to give us some support. And I thought Kate Darby and Gabby Featherson did a great job this year to support our space in that area. And you know, when you're going against Strom and those girls, it's a bit hard to do it. So yeah, look out.
Now, one more before we let you go. Thoughts on the start of the season? I'm a big advocate for, and it's probably an unpopular view, but when the Australian Open tennis finishes, just get the season started. Fans are just gagging for footy. They want it, so just give them AFLW. That would be a February start. Where do you sit in the scheme of things? I'm
kind of on your page a bit. You know, it's better weather for starters. No pre-season during the winter months, but you know, just for me, it's about practical elements around what's available, resourcing, facility. You know, the time of the year as well to keep grounds dry and more access throughout the early part of the year, and maybe the potential to cross over and support the men's programs. Is Marvel available? Yep. Just that kind of access to facility for me, that early part of the year would be the best part. But you know what, it is what it is. We're learning every other year from when we get told when to play. So yeah, we'll take some more learnings, but that's my feel.
Dan, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute joy.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks very much for having me.
And thank you for watching The W Show. Thanks to NAB. 2 massive semi-finals coming your way this weekend. We'll see you again next week.
Join me, Sarah Hosking, and me, Sarah Rowe, as we take a look at life on and off the footy field. Tagged every Tuesday on afl.com.au/AFLW or wherever you get your podcasts.